Welcome to the Honest Recruiter podcast, powered by MRL Consulting Group, the no-filter podcast about working in the recruitment industry. Hear about real-life consultants and business owners talking about everything recruitment, leaving out zero detail. If you already work in recruitment or are thinking about working in recruitment, sit back and enjoy the ride. Hi everyone, and welcome to the 5th Honest Recruiter podcast. Now, in today's podcast, we have got the wonderful Neil Ward, who heads up our contract resourcing here at MRL. Now, today's podcast is all about working as a delivery consultant in the contract function and how to really make a career doing delivery. And Neil's got a lot of experience doing that because Neil's been doing recruitment for 30 years. So before we start, Neil, I say this to all our guests, a bit like a blind date introduction, if you will. Just give us a little bit about you and a little bit about yourself.
Okay, hi Billy. Thanks for the invitation this afternoon. A little bit about me. Okay, you've just covered the 30 years of IT recruitment, so I guess that's going to take me right back to the beginning then. Before those 30 years started, I got into this in a rather haphazard kind of a way, and I'm sure a lot of people would say that actually.
I think everyone says they fell into recruitment.
It's more somebody found me as opposed to I went specifically for this job.
Right.
Absolutely. Started out life as a programmer.
Okay.
Or to be more accurate, a trainee programmer. So I went to college and in the summer holidays I started writing off for job applications. This is while I was still up in Sheffield. And I got an interview, which was quite remarkable. And then I got a second interview. Now the plan was go to Polytechnic, as it was called then, do the next level up, which was an HND, convert to a bachelor's course and be a programmer, be the world's best programmer, absolutely kill it, make loads of money. Turned out really that I was probably an average, mediocre programmer.
Right.
And in my first job, which I did actually get after those two interviews, a company in Sheffield, writing manufacturing software, I found that the one thing that I enjoyed, one day in every week, I would be on the telephone help desk, helping customers sort out their problems with software. The printer isn't working, the old have you turned it on at the power? Oh no, thank you. And it became apparent that I actually enjoyed the interface more with humans than I did sitting in a little corner on my own typing away at a screen.
Right.
So that's basically how it all started. I decided to move down to Brighton from Sheffield. Long story, but a good friend of mine moved down with his family. I came and visited, really liked the place, and thought, yeah, give it a go. Registered with a local agency, and they called me about this IT resourcing job. I'm thinking, IT resourcing, okay, I know the IT bit, what's the resourcing?
Yeah.
So they told me a bit about it, and this local company in Brighton came down from Sheffield for the interview, and remarkably, about 3 days later, I was called and told that they wanted to make me an offer.
So do you think that was because you had your programming background to start with?
I think so. At that point, I could talk tech.
Yeah, they thought you were a proper tech wizard.
Well, I don't know, maybe I just blagged it a little in the interview. But
like certainly, everyone does.
Oh, well, you've got to say the right thing. But I think I came across in the right way, and I certainly gave the impression that I'm keen, eager, and I love IT. And certainly, if I'm talking to people that are in IT as a living, then I'm going to be interested, I'm going to be engaged, and I want to do the best for them. I kind of got this resourcing bit around in my head a little bit more, and I thought, actually, this sounds pretty good. Instead of me being the person that's pushing my career, I can do this for others. And wow, you get to work with lots of different people, lots of different technologies. And oh, hang on a minute, there's this word commission that they keep telling me about.
Yeah.
So
more money on top of a salary?
Unheard of. Yeah. I thought it was maybe a southern thing. I don't know if they had it up north at the time, but no, I'm sure they did. But yeah, so it had all these elements that were quite exciting. And I thought, you know what, give it a try. What is the worst thing that can happen?
So was that contract or was it perm?
That was contract.
So literally from day one,
from day one.
Contract.
Yeah, the interesting thing about that, to be honest, Billy, was the added attraction was it wasn't UK. So it had this kind of global feel about it because the company had offices in Australia and in the States. So in the mornings, I was talking to people in Sydney and Melbourne, and I was talking to UK-based contractors about going out to Sydney and Melbourne. And then later on in the day, I was talking with my colleagues on the West Coast. Sometime in the middle of the day, I was talking to my colleagues on the East Coast. And then, again, equally talking to UK-based contractors about working out in these locations. So I had this wonderful difference from start to finish of a day of almost going, well, halfway or more across the world.
Yeah.
You know, and dealing with Australia, then the East Coast and the West Coast of the States, and then talking to people based in the UK at the same time about these opportunities. It got me hooked.
So what was so good about it then?
What was so good? Oh,
Is
the
it
variety.
Is it people?
It's the people. It has to be the people. It starts with the people, obviously. But I would say, I think the variety of the roles that I was getting, okay, going to sound a bit geeky here, I apologise, but it fed that kind of geeky hunger that I have. I like talking tech. I like finding out about things that I don't know.
Yeah.
I have that kind of inquisitive, not accepting something because I'm told it, but I have to ask, well, why? What is it about that? But what makes it that good? Or why is it that you're using instead of... And so this inquisitiveness, and I found that the people I was talking to actually liked hearing that sort of a question. It, I guess, sounded... I was interested.
Yeah.
I was engaged. I did genuinely want to understand what they do, what they want, and how I can help them. So it was a variety of the roles. It was as I said, the added attraction that I could talk about Australia and the States. A little bit different, just selling something local here in the UK, for example. And just engaging with different people, really. Everyone has a different story to tell. And so at the end of one day, you'd think, wow, where's the day gone? How many people have I spoken to? And there'd be different stories rolling around in your head, different challenges. You start developing relationships with these people as the rapport continues, because ultimately you want to get their job for them. You want to place them where they want to go. And I just found it addictive, and it's kind of talking to people about something that you're interested in and being paid for it as well. I mean, wow, this gets better and better. So it all started from there.
So some people would think that like the delivery function is, you know, seen as like the younger sibling to BD, and BD is actually more important. But you know, delivery is the backbone really, because the recruitment side is what we do. Like you said, you're finding people those jobs, or you're placing people in those companies. Yeah. So without that part of it, it wouldn't be what it is today. And you've done that now for, like you said, like in 30 years. So what made you just stick to doing delivery, not going out and winning the business?
Okay. Good question, but let me just go back to that young sibling reference that you made. You know, I hear this a lot, and in 30 years you do hear a lot of things.
Yeah, I bet.
And one old CEO, who will remain nameless, used to say to me regularly, Neil, when are you going to start wearing the big trousers? And what he meant by that was, when you're going to grow up from delivery and move into a business development or a 360 role, as we call it here. And it frustrated me because I never saw the delivery side, the resourcing side, as being inferior or as a younger sibling. I agree that it could be a route, it could be a journey towards something that ultimately might end in business development, and then business development management, and you know, going that route. It could equally go the other way and take you into a career resourcing direction, and you just do exactly what I did.
Yeah.
And so what made me do it? What made me stay there? I've covered the variety. I've covered the fact that I'm talking to people about things I like. So talking tech. And you know what? You can talk more tech to a candidate than you're likely going to have that same conversation with a client, in my limited experience, because I talk to more candidates than clients. But it was just the variety and the ever-changing landscape. 30 years I've seen this move from old, huge IBM mainframes, ICL, big orange and silver boxes, all the way through to client server. I've seen Y2K come along and the challenges that everybody feared at the time. The world was going to end.
You're going to say end of the world.
Yeah, and we're still here, so they were wrong. I've seen little changes in direction, I suppose, in terms of software and the latest must-haves, through to really big changes in software and how things are developed. I mean, look at the e-commerce bubble at the time.
Oh God, it's massive, isn't
Yeah,
it?
.NET.
Yeah.
So the .NET revolution, as they referred to it. And even now, at the time it was amazing, and now we're talking about it as the past tense. It's been and gone, and there's something else around the corner. What else have we got? We've got, I suppose, IR35 is an issue, and that's probably for a totally different session, but that in itself holds big questions that we don't have all the answers for yet. But all of these things come along whilst against a backdrop of contract recruitment. So do you see what I mean? It's a constantly changing landscape.
I think also as well, I think it's the difference between BD and delivery. I think as well it comes down to the type of mindset. Like David, the CEO at MRL, talks about you're either a hunter or you're a farmer. And I think it's so true. Like some people just don't like doing business development because they don't. You've got to like it's the more salesy, more ballsy, like.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a more. Some people could be like, you've got to be like really on it, or.
Yeah.
I could never do sales. Like, it's just not my bag at all.
And you say sales. I never ever saw myself as a salesperson.
Yeah.
Until I heard someone tell me one day, but you are selling. You're selling to candidates.
Yeah, the product is people at the end of the day.
Absolutely. And it never occurred to me that that's what I was doing.
Yeah. But I guess with the delivery role, people don't see it as the more selling because you're not negotiating with a client to go, these are what our fees are. You're effectively building relationships with somebody to go, I've got this job which you all love, and you're kind of selling that job opportunity to that person, and then selling that candidate to the client. So it's kind of a mixture of the both. But I can completely see what you mean.
The BD side of it, I'd have to admit it's not something that massively appealed to me, and I think probably in 30 years I've seen a lot of people come and go, and in that in-between bit where they've given it a try and they've failed for whatever reason. And maybe that disturbed me. I didn't see a lot of support, I suppose, for those budding young salespeople that wanted to be. And I kind of thought, I get what I do. I understand it. I enjoy it.
Yeah.
I suppose that fear factor of moving into something, and if I fail, what happens? Am I out of it, or do I come back to doing what I do? I don't like failing. And so that might sound a little bit like don't ever stick your head above the parapet, but I really had that view and still do, that I'm comfortable in what I do.
Well, like you said, you've made a very successful career in doing the whole delivery function.
Yeah.
But obviously you've seen it change. Like
I have.
Obviously there was no internet.
Thanks for that, Billy.
When you think of things like that, like David's mentioned it before, where he remembers everyone queuing to get the fax machine to send the CV over to the client and waiting. Like there was no calls outside the office. So what would you say is the biggest thing that's changed? Is it mobile phones, the internet?
I think, can I sort of go outside of that box and say social media?
Yeah, 100%.
Because that covers all platforms, if you like. It covers all, or a multitude of sins, and I think that's the biggest change and the largest revolution, really, when I compare it to all of the others. And who knows, in 10 years we'll be looking at something even more amazing if I'm still doing this, hopefully. But it's just the massive impact that social media has made and had on this, and what we do, how we communicate, and even how we can possibly pick up new roles from clients, find candidates. I could actually probably do the whole thing without picking up the phone and talking to someone if I chose to do that.
Yeah.
I never would. I'd like the engagement. And you want to understand who you're dealing with. You want them to hear you and get that rapport building.
Oh, yeah, people buy from people, don't they?
Absolutely. And people like people who are like themselves. But it's possible because of social media. You could actually, if you wanted to, you could resource something without ever speaking to someone.
Do you think it's been made easier with social media?
In all honesty, some aspects, yes, but I think it's been clouded by social media as well. Because essentially, the role is still the same as it was 30 years ago, and much before I started as well, I'm sure. And that is relationship building with people, understanding a need, finding not a match but the best match that you possibly can for that need, and putting those two things together. And that is a series of conversations.
Yeah.
It has to be. Otherwise, we're moving towards, dare I say it, AI and artificial intelligence as a resourcer. That's frightening. That's frightening. So,
but I'm sure there will be tech. Yeah, you said in 10 years' time we'll be sat here talking about some kind of software or IoT element within recruitment will help us do our job even more than it does now. People would think LinkedIn.
I think so. And I mean, to be honest, you actually read about it now anyway. I mean, Google are talking about such things. Whether or not it will have that impact, I don't know. I still believe in the old-fashioned way of doing it, which is pick up the phone and talk to someone.
I don't think that will ever disappear. I think people will always be on the end of the phone, because I even think now BD is never done just on LinkedIn on messages. I think there's no, send me your terms and I'll send it back straight away.
Yeah.
You've no idea who that person is. Like, you need to build that rapport over the phone with people.
Absolutely. And also, you don't know what that client is going to be wanting. That client doesn't know what you want out of them in terms of terms for doing business. You're never going to get that perfect marriage. There's always going to be a question, and it's going to be a lot quicker if you pick up the phone and talk.
Yeah. Okay, so 30 years then. What
from now?
No, just in general. The 30 years of your career, let's get to the stuff which people really want to listen to.
Okay.
When have you gone, shit, I've really messed up?
Okay, no, this is really embarrassing. And it's, you know what, it's not even at the beginning of my career either.
Amazing. It's last week.
In fact, it was this morning. No, not at all. Okay, so just to set the scene, I'm working for, here in the UK, I'm not going to give locations or anything, just to save my own embarrassment. But my manager at the time, if she hears this, she might recognise it. And so, ultimately, we're owned by an American company. And the account manager / salesperson that was handling this particular deal was essentially taking a UK-based candidate and placing them in the States. They left, and the whole account was handed to me to kind of handle, if you like, and just caretake.
Right.
Absolutely fine, totally understood it. I spoke with the client and I got the overall gist of what they wanted, made sure that the candidate, who had already been resourced, this wasn't my work, candidate was happy and still engaged and you know, on side for the whole proposition. Absolutely fine. And, made notes of, okay, so they're dealing in dollars and we're dealing in sterling. Absolutely perfect. Until one of my American colleagues actually called me and asked me why I had quoted the candidate's rate to the client as the overall charge rate.
No!
At which point they had put their hands in the air and gone, hallelujah, thank you very much, we'll take it. And the deal was done. And we had to follow it through. We couldn't back out.
Yeah.
And so we did that deal for absolutely no money. Shit. But if you think of the cost involved to actually get it done,
oh, absolutely,
we paid for it. And I was made to feel embarrassed for quite a while afterwards.
I bet. So what did you do from that? From learning, was that just like, right, I need to always make sure that whatever currency I'm in, I need to know?
Well, it wasn't so much the currency. I think it was stepping into a role and trying to pick up on a situation that I didn't know from day one.
Right.
And what I learned from it is, if you're not sure about something, ask. Stop and ask and go no further until you are in absolutely no qualms at all about what you are dealing with, what you have in front of you, what information it is that, whether it's client or candidate based, that you're working to. Make sure you absolutely understand it and ask questions if you don't, even if you feel foolish for doing so. Because I didn't, and that was a big screw up.
I'd tell you what, that's a big thing you say about. I don't think enough people ask questions because I think they're afraid because it's looking like failure, isn't it? When you've been brought on to do a job, but then you're asking questions, they go, well, you should know this. So I think that's definitely. I think every podcast that has definitely someone said, just ask questions.
Yeah.
Like, ask questions, because don't just sit there and think, because they're not going to get pissed off at you because you've asked questions.
That's it. I think it's that fear thing inside you. I don't want to look stupid. I won't ask. I'll show them I can do it. And boy, I learned the hard way.
Yeah.
And that was quite a few years into my career. So, yeah, absolutely. Every single time, if you're not sure, just ask.
So obviously with the if we look at the role then, the actual delivery role within contract, obviously it's super fast paced. So people that have never done contract recruitment before and are listening, and you do perm, contract, sometimes it's within 24 hours, someone has to be there. There's a project, you get a call, we need this engineer, project manager, whoever, on site in Munich tomorrow.
Yeah.
You're like, then it's on your desk. So it's such a fast paced role. And also you're constantly being fed new roles from I guess the BD person.
BDs, account managers, yeah. So you've got a stream of these coming in. Best way really to approach it, the way I deal with it is, first of all, don't panic.
Yeah.
I prioritise roles. We have a matrix here in the contracting team as well as in the perm team. I'm sure you've seen the perm one. So we can effectively grade a role and give it a score.
Yeah.
The idea being that one hopefully will come out higher than another. If I get 20 and they're all high scoring 50 out of 50, for example, I'm not going to see my bed for a long time. And I'm going to be
and I need
busy.
staff.
Absolutely. So yeah, there's a way of prioritising, which will basically take me to the most important, most fillable, and that's the idea behind it, role. But then I would go to the next one and the next one and the next one. But it's you said it, it's the pace, it's speed to market. Chances are dealing with competitors as well. So how quickly can I get to that right candidate, that ideal candidate, as opposed to the agency up the road or the one in London that I'm working against. So there's always that. There's an element of competition. You don't always get it. Sometimes we come off second or third. It's the nature of the beast. And it depends on when we get the job as well. You know?
Do you feel like it's really important to build that relationship with the BD or your account manager? Like,
absolutely.
it's like,
yeah,
because the person here, you two are like Ant and Dec. It's like you come as a pair, and I think that's great to see that, because you know that's your working relationship is so tight. How have you built? Obviously, people might be new to this and going, "Oh, I'm doing delivery and contract, but it's shit." Or you know, how do you build on that and make it successful? I guess.
Good question. I would say ultimately what I have what we have is a partnership.
Yeah.
It does have to work that way. How you get there, I think. Just looking back, it started by, as any role would, I suppose, just being given a few roles to work by this new BD guy that had started at the company at the time. And over time, we just obviously had a good rapport. I was quite happy to ask questions, or if he gave me a job description that was absolutely naff, then I'd say, come on. I need some more than this. Either let me talk to your client and qualify this, or here are my questions. Can you go and get more around this? Essentially, if I'm going out to a candidate base, I need credibility. I need to be able to talk to them about, I have a job that you really want, that you are really great for, and it's real and it's live. It's not an imaginary thing to get a CV from you. And this is what you're going to be doing. These are the skills that the client is asking for. This is how much typically you're going to be paid for, and this is how long it's going to be for. All of those lovely things.
Yeah.
You wouldn't believe some of the things I used to get in the early days. It's in my old coding days, there used to be a sort of standing joke about being given a program specification written on the back of a fag packet.
Right.
It was more like written on the back of a matchbox when some of these guys were bringing these jobs.
But I think it's so important you mentioned that. I think it's how, especially how we do it here, we consult with our clients. And if they give us a CV or a job spec which is pony, we will actually go back and be like, you aren't going to get anyone for this, because we need more information, like you said, to sell in to that contractor. It's
a bit like, you could walk into Curry's and say, I want a PC. And then stop at that.
Yeah.
Well, what kind of PC, and what sort of price range, and what do you need it for? All of those things that they're assumed that we would know, and we won't know them. We have to ask the questions. And you're right, it's a consultative thing, and the only way you're going to get it, just going back to that, AI versus human, is by talking to the client. I can't imagine any AI piece of software that could grab that, because on a good day you might get a more descriptive narrative from a client, and on a bad day you might be left with, oh, just read the job description and get on with it. So it does need that conversation. So yeah, going back to your question, over time I found anyway that I was finding the right kind of candidates, we were making the placements, so success was coming.
Yeah.
And I think from that, trust starts building.
Yeah.
And it's that trust level, that's really when things started changing.
The T word is so important.
It
in
is.
anything.
It is.
Life,
Yeah.
boyfriend, girlfriend, husband,
Yeah.
wife, anything.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
I think once that is there, it shows that you can trust each other. You can,
Yeah.
they can trust you speaking to a client.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's
Yeah.
why are you going to talk to the client? That's what I do.
Well, it did actually get to that point where, and again, not naming names, but he would be out on the road, as we call it, going to or coming back from a client visit, and my phone would ring on my desk. Neil, I've just got this amazing requirement. We're looking for an XYZ type of person with such and such an industry background. And he'd phoned the requirement in. By the time he got back to the office, I was well into working through a search underway. We're talking to candidates. Sometimes I'd actually have candidates ready to submit. And so the trust level just grew and grew to the point where I think at one point, he is now my manager, but he referred to us as Batman and Robin. Yeah, unfortunately I was Robin, but there you go, I don't mind.
Robin had a great suit though.
Yeah, I think Batman's was a bit better. But
yeah.
So yeah, it got to that point where he knew that he could trust me implicitly. I would understand or I would ask. If I didn't, no time would be wasted. And we just came as a duo. We made a great team. We got on well. There was a good rapport. We had a good laugh about the role, sometimes about our own roles, what we do, some of the funny stories that you get along the way. And when you've got that chemistry, then that is, I suppose, recipe for success.
Yeah.
And we've stuck with it. We've had that for over 20 years now. So long may it continue.
So how do you, I guess, like looking at like your time management, but I guess also like with contract, it's all about building relationships, even more so, because when a contract ends, that contractor wants another job.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So do you think you've kind of got your own formula of kind of constantly speaking to contractors, even if you've not placed them, to kind of be going, how's it going? We've got a job. I might have a job come up in a few months. When's your contract finishing? Is it like a cycle you're in, or is it quite ad hoc? Or
well, you know what? You're right on both counts. There's a cycle because every contractor is at some point going to finish their contract through us. So we want to know either are we going to extend you, which is a conversation with the client, and that would happen 6 weeks out or maybe 4 weeks out of the worst case scenario before their end date. And if the project is complete, or if the contractor decides that they don't want to renew because they want to go into a different avenue of work or whatever reason it might be, they're moving house, they want to change location, then that's a conversation with them to try and then find them their next role. It's in our interest to try and place our contractors. We want to maintain the contract book, of course, any company would.
Of course, yeah.
But also, if it's not something that we can help with, at least know that you've had the conversation, thank them for their time and their hard work through us and with us, and make sure you've got the updated CV for them. You know where they're going, and you keep in touch. I speak to contractors that we've placed and therefore have worked through MRL, and 6 months later, I've re-engaged with them because I know where they went and I've kept in touch with them. So they've gone off, worked through some other agency on a different client site, and then they've come back to MRL. So it's that constant keeping in touch.
Yeah.
And it sounds quite expansive, I suppose, in a way it is, but that's what CRM systems are for.
Yeah,
you make your notes, you put your notes on the system, you know who has worked for you before, and you just keep tabs on all of these people and keep in touch with them. Because
it's being rememberable, isn't it, as well?
It is. And you know what? The sort of person that is going to remember me is the person that probably last spoke to me as opposed to 10 other agencies.
Yeah.
So if I'm constantly in touch with them, there's greater chance they're going to remember me over those 10 other agencies.
100%.
So I do like to, I try not to be annoying, but sometimes I can be. So I'll just like to know where these guys go, and just know that they are going to become available again at some point, and just get that message out there that we're here to help.
So we end each podcast with kind of advice that you would give to yourself 30 years ago or to new people wanting to start in recruitment.
Okay.
So the 3 bits of advice. To be fair, you've probably said quite a bit of advice in half an hour anyway, but
okay,
you know what? If it really stands out.
Yeah, fair enough. If I could look back and tell myself of 30 years ago, looking back and knowing what I know now, I probably would have said, don't spend too long being a programmer. You're going to be very average.
Yeah.
Go and have a look at recruitment. But as you say, most people fall into it. So it was something that I found accidentally. So 3 pieces of advice. And in no particular order, I don't think people deliberately go into recruitment. I don't think they come out of college or university saying, I'm going to be a recruitment consultant. I'm sure there are those that do, but it's almost as if it's this accidental profession that people fall into that didn't even know it existed. So if you are going into it because that's what you want to do, then some of this might sound kind of obvious anyway. But if it's something that you would consider but didn't really know what it was about, I think my first point would be prepared for hard work. Lots and lots of calls. And remember, this is a people thing. And as I said before, it's all very well about the AI software and all of the wonderful gadgets and gizmos that we've got. But at the end of the day, this is a relationship building people thing. So if you don't like talking to people, if you're a little phone shy, don't like people hearing you on the phone when talking to others, maybe not for you.
Be a programmer.
Yeah, sit in the corner, code away, you love it.
Yeah.
And I think I've mentioned this anyway, sorry to repeat myself, but I suppose the second point would be don't be afraid to make mistakes. It's probably one of the best ways of learning. So make mistakes, screw up. Otherwise, you're not going to know what is right, what is wrong, and how to get out of that situation, out of that fix. We all do it. Don't be embarrassed about it. I think the point of it would be make sure you learn from it.
Yeah.
Everyone can screw it once. If it's a consistent thing, then you know there's something wrong. And, there are so many things I could say, but you only want me to give you 3 points. I suppose the third one, keep an open mind and don't go into recruitment only thinking that your ultimate goal is to be the world's greatest business developer or ultimately a BD manager and therefore owner of a company. Don't think that that's the only way forward. And as I am living proof of 30 years, being a career resourcer, it can be very rewarding. So don't close yourself off to that avenue. Go in, try it, see what you think, see where it takes you.
What a lovely way to end. You should write a book.
That would be a very short book. But
Neil's memoirs of a recruitment delivery consultant.
I think I've put a few cheeky things in there at the end. We'll see what happens in about 20 years.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Neil, for coming on our
Absolute
podcast
pleasure.
today.
Thank you.
I'm sure you'll hear Neil again over the years to come on our recruitment podcast or maybe other podcasts. But remember to listen on various different platforms. We're on Spotify, iTunes. You can listen to us on YouTube, and soon we are going to be filming our podcasts. So make sure you share, comment, give us a like, and keep your eyes peeled next week for our next episode. Neil, thanks again, and
Pleasure,
we'll
Billy.
see you all
Thank you.
very, very soon.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Honest Recruiter podcast. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and even subscribe. Keep your ears peeled for the next episode.